here for the Hive podcast inside the LHSN studios, and joined by a very special and relevant guest today, Dr. Jeremy Welsh, Dean School of PA Medicine. Thank you so much first of all, for being willing to join us in the studio today.
No problem at all. Look forward to talking to you.
Well, let's begin with, obviously, we're going to talk about the coronavirus and the effects it has on the Lynchburg community. We hear a lot of information nationally about what we should do, but I think it's a really good time for us to go into your world a little bit in the decision making over the past few weeks and kind of how we got here, taking us kind of behind the scenes. So if you could start by going back a little bit and factoring what factors went into the really tough decision of extending spring break, and then what may come, keeping people away from each other on campus for as long as they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the university did a great job with meeting early. I think where we've seen some of the mistakes across the country and with other institutions and other businesses was a delay in even starting to have the conversation, because these conversations don't come easy. This has an impact on learning, it has an impact on employment, it has an impact on our community. So I was very appreciative that the University of Lynchburg met early and met frequently to start talking about how this would impact us. I think the initial communication was smart in that it was really, let's watch and see what happens. Coronavirus isn't new. That strain of virus is not new. As a healthcare provider, this is coming on my 18th year, and my background and training was in emergency medicine. Coronavirus existed when I first was training. So that alone is not new. The general idea of this strain, or the novel coronavirus, which means new, novel means new, is really the strain of this is what's different, and how this impacts people and how contagious it is really where we were watching and waiting to see what happened. So the university was on that early, was really paying attention and seeing how this would impact the community. So the crisis management team started meeting, and we started talking about how this could impact us, the community, how it would impact learners, how it would impact faculty and staff. So there was a lot of consideration that went into this in the early days. And really, most of our early meetings were really just planning out and how this could impact us, and then really focusing on some mitigation schemes. I mean, if this was to happen, how would we respond? How quickly would we respond? How long would it last? So the committee was quick to act with at least just getting the conversation started.
What, if anything, was a deciding factor, at least for us here in Lynchburg? Were there any things that took place elsewhere that may have decided, hey, we got to take action right here and right now?
I think when the country and the state really started to talk about social isolation is when the institution took that seriously. And again, I was appreciative of that. Some others have waited too long, I think. So the institution took that seriously, and I think the focus there is being able to distinguish that not only are we attempting to keep our students safe, our faculty and staff safe, but really this is a more global conversation about our community. If you look at the community here on campus, a good number of the people here are young and healthy. And this, if anything, could be an inconvenience of illness, cough, some fever, some body aches, and may dissipate on its own. But that's not just what this is about. This is really about being able to have a positive impact on our community on campus, but also our Lynchburg community. We could have coronavirus and go about our day-to-day without really any interruption, but we could take it home and we could have a real negative impact on our loved ones, others with comorbidities, advanced age, things like that. So the institution was very intentional about realizing that our students and our faculty and staff could be leaving the local Lynchburg area, going to take a needed rest on spring break, and then bringing it back to our community, and then how would that impact us? So they took that seriously, and we decided that the first was to extend that spring break week. That gave the campus community a greater amount of time so we could look at logistics and how it impact us. And then going online was really a smart decision, and I'm appreciative of the VPs and provosts and such to make that decision. That's a hard commitment in the early days.
One thing that personally I've noticed with all of what's taken place the last week is we've kind of secretly been getting ready for this moment, looking in the studio and the abilities that we have to reach people virtually from that perspective. From your side of things, from medicine, from the PA school, your students, and being able to go to other countries and see what it's like to be in different environments, what do you think what kind of actions do you think have been taken? Kind of maybe some parallels you may have seen from other countries that actually has you and your colleagues and even some of your alums and current students prepared to not just administer help, but even provide good advice and adhere to the rules.
Sure. When we started to discuss this, I think what came easy, and that's relative, it's not really easy for anybody, but came easier maybe for our students, both in the master's side and the doctoral students, is that global health is really a concept that we take a lot of interest in. We think it's important. We think it plays into how healthcare should be delivered in the United States. And it also, as part of a teaching tool, it really helps us to focus and let our healthcare students, PAs, and doctoral students really examine this from multiple different lenses. The U.S. healthcare system is a phenomenal healthcare system, but it also is a healthcare system that relies on supply chain, and it's a system that needs the masks and the medicines and the ventilators and all this, of course, and those are important and invaluable resources and tools. But what's also important is that we teach our students how to be good diagnosticians. If you're sitting there and a patient's in front of you, how do we connect with that patient? How do we have that true conversation? And that's really the key fundamental to healthcare. You don't want to be only as strong as the labs and the imaging you have in front of you. I tease my students that thing around your neck is not a sexy necklace, that's a stethoscope, and you have to know how to use that. It's not just about an x-ray machine and a CAT scan machine. So our master's and doctoral students are intentional. They respect global health. They understand how it can impact, that we're all in one globe together. So our students have really been listening to this from early in their curriculum days. So bringing it back and now being able to show them how this really could come home, they were very interested. They took it seriously, which I think is important, and they've been part of the solution to be able to understand that we have to social isolate, and we need to be able to understand that going to rotations or showing up for a shift tomorrow, if you're impacting positive care, great, but if you could impact care in a negative way, then we need to remove you from the system. So our students have been very understanding of adjustments and change.
Let's try our best to look a little bit ahead of this. We talk a lot about flattening the curve and being able to keep the healthcare system at a rate in which they can give supplies and treat everyone that gets affected by this. So obviously that starts to make us think about what the end of this could look like. Without any real predictions, what potentially could this look like 40 days, 140 days from now, from the folks that you've talked to or just your own expert analysis? What should we kind of already be planning for in the near future and even further down the road?
Yeah, I do agree with most of the colleagues out there that unfortunately this will probably get worse before it gets better. What I think we do need to focus on here is that there is an end to this. We have seen this throughout multiple different viruses, H1N1, again, coronavirus is not new. We've seen other viruses that act like this. What I think is important is right now we have the ability to have a positive impact on our community and a positive impact on the people around us when it comes to their health. So we've really tried to focus on that. That's important. It's not just about, well, I won't get sick or I don't think I'll get it that bad. It's, can I help prevent my community from having a worse outcome than is possible? So I think it's staying in a state where you're paying attention, where you take it seriously, but you're not allowing anxiety to overcome you. It's hard to focus in medicine when anxiety is what's driving you. Well, we need to be focused on true evidence-based. And the evidence-based is it'll probably get worse. Social isolation is important, and if we pay attention to it and we respect it, then I do think the curve will flatten. I think we're a couple months in, though, before we see a real change here, and that's if we take all of it seriously. I think one of the big fears here is we social isolate, we start to see it get better, we have cabin fever, we go back out, and then we start to see the curve change direction and go back up again. So I think we have to watch this. We have to be really intentional about how we do this. But I think we do have a couple months left before we're going to see a real change in this.
The last thing I want to ask you is if you have any bullet points or outlining points that you want to make sure that people understand, whether it be from a national landscape or even the Lynchburg community that may be watching or listening, what do you consider to be the most important factors that they should be, as you said already a few times, taking very seriously at this point?
That this is a real disease and this is going to truly impact us, not only our health but our economy. And I think continuing to stay up to date on what's happening is important. But also continue to live. I mean, we have to look for the positives here. The positives, we are going to be able to spend some time with our family. We are going to learn in a different way. I mean, our students, many of them have not taken an online class, or if they have, they definitely haven't taken a medicine online class because it's almost really unheard of. So, some of this is we get to expand the way we look at curriculum. We get to expand the way we look at some diagnosis and some other things. I think it also gives us a real grounding in that our community is really, truly important. I think, unfortunately, these days we kind of live in silos. I'm just a student, or I'm just a faculty, or I'm just a staff, but we really have to focus that we're a community together and we can really impact how healthy we are or not in the next couple months. If you're going to go out, be cautious about it. Make good decisions. Wash your hands a lot. Where we used to say, gosh, you wash your hands a lot, do you have OCD? Now it's just good common sense. This is really where we want to focus here. So wash your hands, don't touch your face. We say that over and over again. The news is filled with don't touch your face, and then someone touches their face in the same slide, which I'm not going to do. But in general, that's really something we should take seriously. Touching coronavirus on your hand is not going to impact you. It's touching it on your hand or having it on your hand, then touching your face, eyes, nose, and throat is where we're worried. So those things should be taken seriously. And really, you don't have to stop living, but you do want to deviate from the normal. Restaurants and bars are probably not a great idea right now. That does not give you the isolation that we're looking for. And if we can make that small temporary sacrifice right now, I think the outcome becomes better for all of us. I do realize that impacts the economy. It impacts other people around us, our community members that own those businesses, and we understand that. And I think we have to be prepared to help. We have to be prepared to make sure that everybody survives this, not only health-wise, but as a community, and hopefully we all come out stronger in the end.
Certainly hope the best for everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Look forward to hearing from you possibly every week, or just getting some updates from Dr. Jeremy Welsh as we move forward through all this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.